Hey everyone, my name is Wyatt. I am an athlete with Mountain Tactical Institute, and today I'm going to walk you through my clothing layering system from fast and light ski tours into cold Alaskan ice climbing and how I go through the system and think through my layering. So let's get started. A few concepts about my layering system that I'd like to highlight with this video is going to be one, the system is going to be modular, so just taking one layer or a different layer and then moving them around can change the warmth of your system quite a bit. The second being is that these base layers of the base system are all going to be able to be dry just through body heat alone. It's going to take some time, and it's not obviously going to happen immediately when we're in the cold environments, but for the events that happen when we break through the snow bridge on a river crossing, or we fall into the waterfall and the water gets us completely soaked, we're still okay because our body heat alone is enough to dry these layers off with a little bit of active insulation.
Now for the third most important part of my layering system, and that's going to be the overall weight of the system. All these items on the table weigh only 7.6 pounds. I find that to be relatively light for an entire expedition climbing system. The majority of my climbing system I can pare down to weigh only 3.7 pounds, and then carrying a variety of layers in my pack depending on the overall conditions of the day. I'll post the chart in the details of this video. Check it out if you want. It'll highlight the exact weight of these layers.
These are my core base layers, these 4 layers right here. Traditional winter climb or traditional winter ski approach where it is below 10 degrees in Alaska and potentially even into those negatives. I'm first going to start off with this Craft base layer. This is the Craft Active Extreme base layer. Most of my ice climbing days, I'm using this layer specifically for my base. I have a few of these layers. That's how I can do that, and just rotate through them. These have holes in the chest, the back, the underarm, and the top of the arm, therefore allowing for sweat to escape and get off of your skin efficiently, along with the material actively wicking sweat away. That way, when I get up to the next belay, I don't have the evaporative cooling that my sweat produces and have that heat loss from that. The second layer for the upper layer that I also will use as a core base layer for the warmer spring times. This is the Patagonia Air Pro trail running jacket. What I like about it is it has venting on the arms, so I can pull the arms up and unzip the chest in either 2 ways in order to vent the heat. It's got a really nice hood system, so if it is a little windy and you don't want to wear a beanie, you can unzip the jacket in a lot of different ways. And then this is where the modulation is going to come in. So this is my Black Diamond Deploy windbreaking layer. This one is only 48 grams, and you just saw how small it was. I can take it and just stuff it in my pocket. If I get too hot wearing it, if I need an extra layer, I can pull it out of my pocket really quickly, throw it on over top of whatever layers on the outside. So thin, I have it on inside out right now. I don't really care about which way I put it on because there's not really any pockets in it, so it doesn't really matter in my mind. The zipper just is a little bit harder to work when you put it on inside out. You just have to fiddle with it a bit differently, but you can still do all that fine. I find that it adds an immediate 10 degrees extra warmth just through the wind breaking and heat containing aspect of it. On where you put it, it can create quite a bit of heat for the active activity. So I'm sure everyone watching is like, you're gonna sweat when you do that, it'll have too much moisture, but the Deploy windbreaking layer is not waterproof, it's permeable, so you will get sweat transfer through this as well. So it's not as comfortable as a polypropylene or wool base layer, but you will still have that heat released in the moisture movement, so it's not just going to swamp you in your base layers. And it's honestly impressive with how warm it can be just wherever you put it in the system. On a really windy day, I will go ahead and pre-layer the system like this, then have this active insulation over top, and that really seals in everything, making it quite warm from a base layer perspective. And it's honestly impressive how warm you'll be with just adding a windbreaking layer right outside of the base layer. One of the best reasons that I like to use this layer is for when I need to add a layer or remove a layer. When I strategically place it in my system, depending on the conditions, I can add and remove layers that we all have to do as we go through the mountains without losing any heat. So, if you are in a windy spot and you're sweating throughout the day, as we put layers on and off, if you're always constantly removing your windbreaking layer, you just dump all that heat and then throw on another jacket. You have to rewarm your core temperature however much you just released. So then I like to have a form of active insulation depending on the weather. This is my Dynafit DNA PolarTech Alpha jacket. What I like about it is that this right here is one layer fits all system. It's got windbreaking material. It's got a mesh underneath, so it has venting. It has good pockets for my gloves and stuff while climbing. I can tuck them in there. And it's got a nice warm insulated hood system that on a really cold day, I don't have to fiddle in my pack for another beanie or a different beanie. I can just throw this under my helmet and clip it back on, or even over top. And then on the back, you can see it has venting along the spine, which I usually find myself to over sweat in that location. So for most applications in skiing and climbing, my outermost layer is going to be this soft shell layer. So active heat transfer does just happen naturally. So I do feel like I can move rather quickly in this layer and not have to take it off once it's on. This Alpine Start layer just keeps the ice chunks and the snow particles in the spindrift from saturating that Dynafit DNA windbreaking layer. And it just brushes off of this for the most part. And this is relatively windproof, not so much waterproof, but it does keep it all contained as one system, and that's why I really like it. And I'm not worried about letting the elements in. Deploy down puffy. I choose this one because it is so light. It is 148 grams from Black Diamonds. And what I like about it is that I don't have to mess with any zippers. I can just throw it on, pull it down, and then just keep setting up my system, and nothing really has to happen. I don't have to find a armhole. And then when I'm ready to continue to climb again, I can just take it off, punch it up quickly, stuff it in my bag, or clip it back to my harness. And if it is actively raining or actively gusting, horrendous winds, I will go with my beefier Dyneema shell. And this is the only part of my system that is not modulated, that I can't put on 3 different ways, have a variety of layers on the outermost layer, and vice versa. And that's because this is a shell layer. It is fully waterproof and it doesn't breathe. So with this being the outermost layer for my climbing, unless I have a true need for this, I'll typically leave this in my pack, because when I do need this layer, I'm going to want to have it for when the windstorm comes in or the whiteout comes in and I'm no longer able to climb as fast. This really contains everything and closes off the entire system to where now I have a outer shell protective situation. The last layer in my system for expedition weight, bivy weight, is going to be the La Sportiva Equilibrium Puffy. It's a 750 fill, and I bought it in an extra large, so it can go on the very end of it, on the very outer shell of everything, and create and trap airspace over top of all these layers. Just provides the last little bit of insulation that I need, most likely down to -30 while I'm not moving. So if I were to be active in all these layers, I wouldn't want to do anything more than 0 degrees right now. I'm very hot just standing here. What I like about this layer and why I chose this one is because it has venting on the armpits, and that also calls for stretching and moving while you're at the belay. You can mess with stuff and not have to pull up the layer and dump heat out or let cold come in underneath. It's got a good stretch to it, so you can do all those things. So for the bottom base layers, I think this is still a work in progress for my current system. I was struggling finding good moisture wicking base layers from the outdoor companies that are specific to skiing and things. I always just find them being too hot, and they just get saturated with sweat or too often. So what I ended up going with for this season was this Nike Dry Fit Advanced Performance Running Tight. I've really liked it. It's basically this soft shell type of fabric that has venting and compression support to it. So it does compress my legs. So I feel like I get a little bit better, a little bit less fatigue out of my climbing. And then it also has venting in the crotch. They don't rate the fabric as a windstopper fabric, but it is some hybrid soft shell material that I do feel like it does block the wind pretty significantly for being right up next to the skin. So the layer I'll put on top of that is my Merino -33 lightweight Merino layer. It's the lightest one of these layers because with this active insulation base layer and with the wind breaking behind it, it doesn't need much more insulation to keep my legs significantly warmer.
The next layer I like to incorporate is a soft shell layer. Right now I'm using the La Sportiva Equilibrium layer. It has this awesome mesh on the sides that allows me to not overheat. After that layer, I like to keep a windbreaking layer in my pack, much like the Black Diamond Deploy hoodie. This one is a Dynafit 2.5 Alpine pant layer. It's great. It has this mesh lining in the knee that allows me to not overheat. For my expedition weight shell layer, I like to bring something a little bit more durable for the conditions I can experience. This one is the Arc'teryx Alpha Light Pant. It's a 3-layer Gore-Tex Pro system. And I got this one really because I like the fit. Then my final layer is going to be the Black Diamond Stance Belay Pant. This one's a lot heavier than all the other layers, but it is my worst case scenario bivy pant that I'll use just in case I can't get out of the mountains. I don't typically climb in it. I feel like I would overheat, but it is a really warm pant. Now, if you notice, all these pants have something in common, and that's the ability to get them on and off with climbing boots or ski boots. I find this to be essential when properly layering your lower body.
I've been able to climb and ski mountaineer efficiently and comfortably in -35-degree ambient temperatures with wind chill. So that's my go-to system. So thank you for everyone who's watched the video up until this point, gotten this far. Now I'm going to talk through where I think my layering system could improve. First and foremost, let's start with the base layers. I think my lower base layer with the Nike Advanced Tights, there's some room for a better system there, and I haven't quite found it yet. My next test is going to be with the Bjorn mesh bottoms with the Patagonia Capline mesh waffle, the mid-weight waffle layer over top of those. I think with the very thin mesh underneath to create that moisture movement through there, and then into that secondary insulation for the colder days, I think would provide for a much more comfortable layering system than I currently have, and because it's pretty generic right now. Now, for the second part of the system that I feel I have space for improvement is going to be with my favorite part of the system, ironically, and there is space for some improvement in cutting weight. So with this Dynafit DNA jacket, for the majority of days in not as harsh environments, you can get away wearing this layer alone and then having an outer layer to throw on over top of it. That being said, my layering system can be a little over redundant at times with the extra windbreaking layer and then the soft shell jacket. I feel like I'm carrying 2 extra layers that, yes, can provide me a lot of extra space, but oftentimes on the springtime, I don't really need those layers. And there is a transition ground to where I will just stop bringing this one altogether. So with that being said, I think if I were to find a way to source the Polartec Alpha Pro layer here, just as an individual layer, I could pair that with the Deploy wind layer and essentially eliminating this layer completely, eliminating 388 grams from the system, and then still being able to modulate with that windbreaking layer to contain more heat in certain parts of the system. Now, just a commentary on my shell layerings that I have. I have my soft shell jacket that I typically will ice climb in unless it's raining and wet climb. Then I have my Dyneema Hyperlight layer. These layer systems are good for the conditions. I feel that they don't need to be 2 separate layers, though. There could be an incorporation of a soft shell material into a Dyneema shell outer fabric with venting and a correct design on the jackets that could create a better overall shell system. And then you could have one outer layer that doesn't overheat your movement system. So I think there's a lot of space for that to be designed. And I'm not sure which level of Dyneema Hyperlight used for this, but it is one of the thicker Dyneema layering systems. So there is immediate weight to be cut with just this jacket alone, even though it is super lightweight already. If they were to have used the lesser Dyneema, I think it's 5.1 ounces per yard of Dyneema, that already will cut probably a third of the weight on the shell jacket. So there's a company out there making an additional shell jacket layer. It's called Moose Track. They're a small place on Etsy. Immediately, if you're going to buy a Dyneema layer, that zipper section so you can dump heat is immediately an improvement from the current layer that I'm using. With the soft shell layer, I'm not exactly sure what fabric Black Diamond uses. Soft shell can always be lighter in some way, shape, or form. So if you guys have any other thoughts on a lighter soft shell jacket, please let me know. This is the one that I've found and was relatively light for the application that I'm using it for. And then the biggest gram cutting that I feel like I can immediately do is taking these belay pants here that I have for my expedition weight. Of course, these are great for base camp and cozy, hanging around. You're not really moving in them too much, or that those cold belays bring these that you're not carrying them up the climb. I feel like I could cut down on this weight by getting a pair of down shorts and using those, or even something simple like a down skirt for around my waist layer for that bivy, because that's all this layer is to me, is just a worst case scenario system to where if I'm bivvying overnight, then I have an additional warmth layer for my lower body. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm going to look around for some shorts, maybe even some skirts, whatever makes sense, whatever has the best warmth ratio, and I'll give it a shot. I'll camp in it overnight and let you guys know. So thank you for watching my banter on clothing systems. I'll hop off the soapbox now, and if you guys have any questions, shoot me an email, leave a comment. Let me know. I'd be happy to chat about where your system's at, and if you need help designing it, let me know. I think it's fun to figure out what works for everyone. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to hearing some feedback.